education before your career starts, aim high. That's what education is all about. Focus and aim high. That's really the goal. A lot of people, younger, right, I got my bachelor's. I'm ready to go. I'm going to get a job. And they don't want to do in terms of, why don't you have an expertise in your field? It's like, no, all I need is a job. Then they're thinking they could get married, right? And that's it, and have kids and everything's downhill from there on, right? No, aim high. Why can't you be the expert? Right? When people are reading books, why can't you be the person who's writing these books on these topics and subjects? Right? Why don't we think about ourselves as such? Why don't we put ourselves in that position? Why do we think that there's always going to be a teacher, and that teacher is never going to be me? I'm always going to be a student. If you go with that mentality, you will never become an expert. You'll always be the one who's who's replaceable. Why? Because if they need another intern, guess what? There's hundreds of people out there with a psychology degree, undergrad. There's hundreds of people out there with what? Engineering degree, undergrad. There's hundreds of people, and so you're replaceable. Marketplace, the way it works is that you have to bring some value. So wherever you go, you're going to make it better. So education is important. We have to go at the highest level. And this is what we should teach our children. Whether it's the Islamic religious education or the secular, or you want to call non-religious education, we have to really aim high on that. And our community should not be, bachelor's, that's great. That should not be the case. And once you go into the workforce, when you have career profession, right, we have to understand where we are, for most of us with our age, right, you hit what's called the cruise control. After like 10, 15, 20 years of work in the same place, or 5 years, right, after 2 to 3 years, basically, most of the work. 80% of the work is repetition. Maybe 20% is something where you need to put your brain into it, or be like, okay, I gotta go back to the books, or I gotta go ask somebody else, right? 80%, most of the work is the same deal, over and over and over and over again. You don't even have to think twice about it, So I work in the environmental field, and I don't really, for most part, I know the answer for most of the things that come in, or I know how to go about these things. And there's only a few times where I have to do other things. But unless you get involved with additional, work that is related to your field and you grow in it, you're not going to appreciate, you're not going to grow as an individual. So don't hit cruise control, the IT stuff, or you always have to be on, right? You have to always be learning. So recognize that the value that you bring to the marketplace is based off of what you could do for others. That's really what it is. And that's what you're getting paid for. So education is the focus, the center of it. We should teach our children that they should improve and keep on improving. And not like, now I gotta do this and forget about education. Because, education was when I got my bachelor's or my, master's. No, it grows, and you want to be that person who's the expert, who's writing rules and regulations, who's doing the scientific inquiry and papers and research and saying, well, this is my contribution to humanity. This is my contribution. And we think of it not just, from this worldly perspective, we think of it from the akhirah perspective too, inshallah. Last 5 minutes, inshallah, right?
Yeah, but 10.
Okay, so spirituality, the other thing, right? And I don't want you to be confused about the word spirituality, right? What does it mean, right? And some people, they go into, there's obviously for all of them, for finance, relationship, education, spirituality, health, there's a healthy middle, and then there's two extremes, right? There's a healthy middle, and then where relationship, where the husband doesn't even talk to the wife, right? Or it's so intimate that the husband never shows up at the masjid, he'd like to work and then he's home and he's never, like something like that. So we have to be in the healthy, right, where we are. So spirituality, what does it mean? It's basically connecting with our Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, believe it or not, it's so difficult. People look for, and even Muslims, right, they look for ways so that they could attain, I don't know, like fana or something like that. Right? And it's like, why do you have to go experiment with all this other stuff? when you have the Prophet of God teaching you what you should do in order to connect with Allah? Haven't you read the book of Allah? Like, why do you have to go into like extreme modalities to find, oh, I have to connect to Allah, and they're doing other things that you like, well, what is going on, right? So there's that extreme spirituality. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is doing good work, connecting with Allah, and growing as a person. Your relationship with Allah. Right? What are some of the examples? Very, very in front of you. Because people look for like all these odd things, right? But they don't see what's in front of them. Right? Helping the orphan, right? This program has been going on for how long?
6 years.
6 years, mashallah, right? You don't even realize you just drop some money in there. But that's a great way. Your spirituality, your connection. Now, your spiritual, your salah, that's a spiritual connection. Most people don't even realize it because they're not paying attention, they're not focused. It's right in front of them. That's your spiritual connection. Right? The fasting, that's your spiritual connection. So I want you to recognize that you should also have spiritual goals. And by that I mean goals for the sake of hereafter. Right? One of and if you want to gain some spirituality, one of the goals, one of the ways the Prophet ﷺ used to teach, right? If you look at the Prophet ﷺ, his sujood, right, in his personal ibadah, not because when he was doing congregational prayer, because that's difficult. There are people who are older, there are people who can't stand in the, in prostration or ruku for too long, because physically it's difficult for them. There are kids who are there, there are women who are there who need to attend their children and all that stuff, right? So is that alarm for...
No.
So they have to, pay attention to it. So one of the ways you could gain when you're in the prayer is that you make your sajda longer. Right? Every day, some salah. Right? This way, it's not just a robotic salah that you have. Subhanallah, 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 subhanallah. No, just, put your head down, intention of, oh Allah, and then you ask Allah. The prayer is to ask, it's dua. Prayer is all dua, praising Allah and making dua. That's what prayer is. Most people get lost with the mechanical aspect of it, physical aspect of it, right? But prayer is really dua. That's all to it, if you think about it. It's praising Allah, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, and then iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, right? We worship you alone, and we seek your assistance. That's really what it is. Ihdina siratal mustaqim, guide us to the straight path, right? That's what you're repeating, that's what you're asking for. So make your sajda longer and see if you grow in your spirituality. The other example of spirituality, and there's many in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, right? But for our times, right, connecting the hadith with our times, one of the ways, people will like, I don't want to say kill to park like the nearest to the masjid. Right? It's like, brother, I got here first, this is my spot, I always park, or things like that. And you want to, the sunnah of the Prophet, he describes, right, that the more steps, the more effort you take, the more reward you have, right, for coming to like the people who were far and they were like, Prophet, we can't come, the adhan, the sound, it doesn't reach us because we were too far. It says the more effort, the more reward if you come from that distance. And so we have to recognize if we park our cars, first of all, it's good for our health. Park your cars all the way down. It's going to take you 1 more minute. Okay. Don't park near the masjid. Leave it for others who might be hurt. Leave it for others who are older who have difficult time. But make it a point never to park near the masjid. Right? Unless you have some security concerns or some other concerns, right? But park as far as you can. When you come for salah, right? When you go to shopping, park it aside. This is not just for religious activities per se. Leave it for others. Why? Because your reward is with Allah. When you parked over there and you're going to ShopRite, walking maybe 200 steps, let's just say 100 steps. If your intention is for akhirah, I leave it for others, you've given charity, haven't you? Right? But if you park the nearest spot and you walked in, you may have taken half the steps, right? Maybe half the steps. But did you get reward for that? Perhaps to earn your rizq and provide for your family, but you don't have the other reward. I leave it for others because that's a charity, right? Sadaqah. The other one, very, very simple one, spiritual goals, right? So have that goal, as inshallah. The last one I want to give you is that the people who came and they didn't have anything. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he was the Prophet for all people, right? And the poor people are there and, rich people, and then he's talking about sadaqah. And the rich people are like, they could give sadaqah, the people who had some money. The poor people, they gave, a few days, whatever they had. But the Prophet ﷺ did not limit it to monetary, physical things. What did he do? Even if you smile in the face of your brother, it's sadaqah. Subhanallah. You see, we don't recognize it, but people who didn't have any money in their pocket, dirham or dinar, if they hear the Prophet ﷺ say that, how do you feel? How do you think they felt at that point? Put yourself in that position. Joyous. I smile, I've given sadaqah. So recognize that these are your spiritual goals. Have these goals, because we all have these dunyawi goals, right? Not to take out, there's nothing wrong with having a graduate, degree, graduation date, marriage, wedding, having kids going to college, having our kids going to, weddings. All these are great things, planning for their weddings. All these are good things, 401, 529, PS4, whatever it is, right? PlayStation 4. Is that out? PlayStation. Xbox, mashallah. So all these are goals that people have. But, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But have spiritual, ukhrawi goals, inshallah. And last one is health. We went over it. There's 3 or 4 aspects to health, right? Again, this all comes under fresh: finance, relationship, education, spirituality, and health. And I find it's an easier way for people to reflect upon their lives and say, how am I doing, right? How can I be better? How am I doing today? How can I be better, right? So you put a chart, finance, relationship, and you put a smiley face or simple, what do you call it? A smiley face or a sad face, or a face where it's like no emotions because you're not doing good or bad or anything like that. So, and I'll explain that inshallah. And the last one is health. Health is obviously mental health takes precedent, right? Mental health, believe it or not, if you don't have health, all the other 4s don't really matter, right? So I want you to recognize that. If health-wise you're doing terrible, and I'm not talking about terrible like you got a scar or a pimple or something like that, right? Those are not the issues. I'm talking about if you're not doing well health-wise, pain or whatever, does your finance mean anything to you? Does your relationship, can you improve upon your relationship when you're in like bedridden or something? Your education, how much does it matter? Your spirituality, where does it go? For most part, people, when they suffer health-wise, it's not doing well, right? You got to go through the pain first before you get better, right? And you ask for a lot, yeah, obviously make dua, but it's very difficult. So health is wealth, obviously. And it's really, a lot of it is dependent on that. Do not ignore it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given, if somebody gives you an amana, if I give you, like, let's say, $1,000, right, brother, so-and-so, right, I'll be back. Take care of it. Next month. Or I give you, like, if I'm a farmer, I give you a sheep. Take care of it, right? Or I give you, if I'm your neighbor, I'm going to give you my cat. Please take care of it. I'll be back tomorrow. Right? If I loan you something as an amana, and you're a good neighbor, you're a good person, you're going to take care of it, right? Allah gave us these bodies. Aren't they great suits, right? These bodies are amana. Are we taking care of them? Very big question. Very big question. Allah will ask, why did you could have used it for better purposes. And that's why, you look at, people don't realize the relationship between, and I'm going to finish inshallah in 2 minutes. When people drink wine, why is it haram? Alcohol. Because it messes with your head. It messes with your body. You can't make better decisions. Right? Why is all this pork is haram, right? Because you start acting like one, it's a real big trouble because it eats whatever it wants. Why is the meat of the dead animals haram? Murdar, we call it. Why is it haram? Because your heart becomes dead, your soul becomes dead. As you start acting like dead people, it's big trouble. You don't want to take those characteristics and bring them inside of you. That's why that food is very important. So health is really a very important part. Mental health, right? Physical health, exercising, spiritual health, obviously, and the environmental health. The last point I want to make on this health thing, right? There's one great scholar, Canadian, and he talks about to younger people. He says, you know, before you change the world, just take care of your room. Put your room in order, okay? And many of us put your cars in order, right? Put your house in order. Then talk about changing the world, right? If you can't take care of your room, forget about changing the world, okay? And what he means by that is that it starts where you are, not somewhere else. It starts with where you have the capacity, not somewhere else in the other masjid. It starts with yourself first, right? Don't think about the other people. So with that, inshallah, I will close. Just a few slides that if you could just show. So I wanted to make sure that you have. Again, this is fresh: finance, relationship, education, spirituality, and health. Be cheerful today. The goals for today: always try to be better. Whatever you do, always